Greetings, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of the Everything Went Black podcast. It's the week of Halloween, so Carl Hikara and I are doing a little celebration where we dive into our favorite H.P. Lovecraft short fiction. We started this whole thing over on Soul Knox, where we discussed the Dunwich Horror. We're continuing here at Everything Went Black with probably Lovecraft's most iconic story, the Call of Cthulhu. As you all know, Everything Went Black is part of a loosely organized cabal of content creators known as the Horsemen of the Podcasting Apocalypse. Kicking things off every other Monday, Brandon Legion brings us Horror Wolf 666. Brandon and I are doing a collaboration called The Black Lodge, where we dive into Twin Peaks, the series by David Lynch. Up next on Tuesdays, we have Into the Necrosphere, brought to you by Jackie Smith, the greatest extreme music podcast in the land. Wednesday, of course, we have Everything Went Black, but we also have Cheyenne's Iblis Manifestations. Thursday is Necro Thursday, where the Necromaniacs horror podcast comes at you. But it is also day one of this week's co-host, Carl Hikara's show, Soul Knox. On Friday, we have Spitball Media, an irreverent take on popular culture. Saturday, well, is a day off. It's the greatest season of the year. Go out, enjoy yourself, have yourself a pumpkin spice latte, or one of the great pumpkin beers that are available this time of year as well. Because on Sunday, Carl Hikara comes back with day 2 of Soul Knox. Carl and I are doing a collaboration called Darkness Weaves, where we dive into the work of Karl Edward Wagner. If you are listening to this show, thank you very much. I appreciate your support. If you want to further support the show, you can join the Everything Went Black Patreon for as little as $1 a month. You get bonus content. For $5 a month, you get bonus content plus early access to the shows. And for $25 a month, you can become a sponsor. So we're celebrating Halloween all month at Everything Went Black and at Soul Knox to a certain extent as well.
Yep, I have pretty much everything that I have for October is all, Halloween related in one way or another. So
yeah,
or horror related. So
I kicked the month off with Paul from Restless Spirit talking about some of our favorite Halloween things. We've got the Addams Family talking about their brand new film that is doing the festival circuit right now, and of course that movie is called Mother of Flies, which deals with necromancy and all sorts of cool stuff. And when that's available for watching, they indicated that I'm not sure if it was on the episode or we talked about it afterwards, but that's going to be up on Shudder at some point, hopefully before the end of the year. So that's really cool.
Yeah, Shudder's become their second home kind of. So
yeah, totally. That's a great place to be though, really, if you think about it. So for this week, we're going to talk about Call of Cthulhu, which is one of my favorite stories by H.P. Lovecraft, who is also one of my favorite authors. And everyone does a 31 days of Halloween, which is what we do here at the Hill compound. But I also start reading pretty much only short fiction from maybe the middle of September into November. So for me, it's no novels. I'll do that after the Halloween season is over with. It's all short fiction. I feel like I can get a lot of different stories in a pretty reasonable amount of time, and sort of sink into the atmosphere of the season and everything.
Yeah, it's the nice part about reading short stories is you can read a couple in one collection and then read some in another one, and it's like you're not spending a huge amount of time on any of them really.
Yeah, exactly. And Call of Cthulhu is, kind of like a signature short story, signature work for H.P. Lovecraft. Everyone knows him for the Cthulhu mythos, and the old ones, pantheon of entities. And this is kind of the go-to for that the beginning for people to get involved in that sort of stuff.
It's interesting that people call it the Cthulhu mythos when Cthulhu is kind of like it's not all centered around Cthulhu. It's actually
No,
centered around Azathoth and
Azathoth, yeah.
Yog-Sothoth and Nyarlathotep, or which are
Yep.
the actual kind of outer gods. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah,
But Azathoth is almost like probably the most powerful out of all the old ones.
yeah. He's the center of the chaos at the center of the universe. You know,
Yep.
like and Cthulhu is more actually an alien creature in a way. Like the Cthulhu and his Cthulhu star spawn are actually like aliens, basically. So
Right.
it's yeah,
And
who yeah
I wanted to talk about this story too because it's anyone who's been listening to our Darkness Weaves episodes, that kind of concept comes up quite a bit in Wagner's Kane stories, where there's like in some alien, presence or technology that almost accidentally ends up on the planet Earth and is the source of a lot of darkness and evil and weird technologies and things like that.
yeah. Cthulhu, as we find out in at the Mountains of Madness, Cthulhu and his star spawn like came to this Earth, and they fought a battle with the Elder Ones, who were previous alien entities who came to this Earth. Who had wings that kind of burned off when they landed in Earth's atmosphere, and their kind of saga is described in At the Mountains of Madness, but it's also described how they fought this battle with the Star Spawn, which is probably when Cthulhu is laid to rest in Rilla, you know what I mean? But he's not entirely material, as we'll find out in the story.
Yeah,
He's like this kind of like other material, similar to the Outer Gods, but maybe not quite as unknowable. You know what I mean?
exactly, exactly. So this was written in the summer of 1926 and was first published in Weird Tales in 1928. Um,
I It has like the greatest line. We live on a placid island of ignorance in the midst of black seas of infinity, and it was not meant we should voyage far.
yeah, that was like definitely. I have that outlined in the on my. I have the Kindle version here. I use the Kindle version to outline everything, so I don't want to like fuck up my books.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's like a really cool like opens up this whole story.
I think this first paragraph is really like set is really important because it basically outlines the concept, of Lovecraft's fiction as a whole in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it's almost like a thesis or something, you know what I mean? It's almost like his mission statement about this whole world of alien beings and how the point of view that we have is so minuscule and that it's to our actually in our best interest to not venture beyond what our narrow bandwidth is because everything that exists beyond our mortal understanding is just too incredibly mind-blowing and inconceivable, and that's like if kind of like the definition of Lovecraftian cosmic fiction, really, cosmic horror.
Yeah. Yeah, it's well, and again, not to really to again, but to the game Bloodborne, and that they make it so that it's like the more insight you get, this you start realizing that these like horrors are all around you the whole time you're playing the game. Like these like unseen presences, and it's like the same thing in Lovecraft. It's almost like better to be better to be ignorant. You know what I mean?
And what's interesting is like the main character, the Francis Wayland Thurston, finds out about all this stuff pretty much like by accident. You know what I mean? He's going through his was his grand uncle,
Yeah, his uncle, his bachelor uncle who never had kids, so he became like kind of the
the
executor of it.
executor,
Yeah.
yeah, of his estate, and he was a linguistics professor. His name was George Gamble Angle, he's a professor at Brown University, and so he passed away, and Thurston became the executor of his estate and started going through all of his notes and everything.
And he found like a kind of box that basically should have been marked forbidden box, basically,
It should
full
have
of
been buried somewhere or cast into the bottom of the ocean or something. Yeah. So
yeah.
And this is where he unwittingly learns about this otherworldly, peril or this horror that exists in the outer cosmos, you know.
Yeah,
So the first thing he finds is like a small sculpture of this creature.
it's like a bas relief. So it's like
Yeah.
yeah.
So it's simultaneously pictures of an octopus, a dragon, and a human caricature. So,
And there
but
there
that's
there is a drawing that Lovecraft did that a lot of people base his Cthulhu. So it's kind of like a sitting figure with like dragon wings and a kind of octopus head, essentially, is kind of what
yeah,
Cthulhu is supposed to look like. Yeah.
that's what you can buy little statues like that everywhere. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, it's like a thing now. You can Cthulhu sweaters and
Yeah,
like
now we got cutesy Cthulhu, which is kind of
yeah,
annoying. Yeah. But yeah, he finds this bas relief, and in it he starts reading his uncle was approached by this artist who came to him with this bas relief with these unknown hieroglyphics and things on it, and relating this dream he had where he felt compelled to create this thing. And um at first the angle's kind of like, well, you coming to me with this is like brand new, like you just made this. And the guy says something, well, it came to me from dream, which is like older than, there's like this line where he says something about how it's older than time or all this stuff.
yeah,
But then he relates it to his dream, and in the dream the term Cthulhu Fhtagn came up.
yeah.
And that's what gets Angle's interest, because he's heard that term before.
Yeah, and Angle, is a linguistics professor, so of course the language aspect is like what, piques him. And so the guys that the artist's name is Henry Anthony Wilcox. And in his dreams, he has dreams of great cyclopean cities of titan blocks and sky-flung monoliths. So it's like a really cool description of Erle and
Yeah,
what the way he
non-Euclidean
yeah,
geometry. Yeah.
like angles and sort of, this other stuff. Now, once again, we talked about this on the Soul Knox episode. They also mentioned the two books that are actual texts. They mentioned The Golden Bough by James George Fraser and the Witch Cults of Western Europe by Margaret Murray, which I actually have both of those. Have you read those or
Yeah,
fucked around with them?
I have both of them too. Yeah.
Yeah. So once again, we have bizarre geometry and otherworldly creatures, and we have a cult that Wilcox talks about. So the Golden Bough has to do with like the idea of the process of going from uh, magic to ancient concepts of magic into religion, into science. So Cthulhu, as we learn later on, is like an alien that ends up on there's a battle, a war with the elder gods, and Cthulhu ends up quote unquote dead and dreaming at the bottom of the ocean. So he's like from another world essentially, and the city has like these bizarre angles, and so it touches on that whole idea like in the Golden Bough with magic and that being cast into religion. So there are cults throughout the planet who still worship, uh, the idea of Cthulhu that exists from before any kind of monotheistic religion. So they're, you know, worshiping this ancient religion.
Yeah, and he communicates through to his followers through dreams and visions and things. So,
Yeah, yeah,
um, and yeah, what we find out is that at the same time as Wilcox, the Angle basically puts out for like press clippings, and there's all this essentially all this information about all these like earthquakes. And one thing that's interesting is that the earthquake that is referenced that happened in New York actually happened. It was a real thing um,
yeah,
that occurred at that time. So Lovecraft was like really drawing upon real life. And I guess when they did the when H.P. Lovecraft Historical Society did the stuff for the movie they did, the Call of Cthulhu movie, and then when they do like these kind of like um bot like kind of like things they sell that are like prop boxes basically.
Right.
And when they did it for Call of Cthulhu, they were able to just find the actual like newspaper mentioned in
Oh wow,
on the date and it was talking about the earthquake. Like, you know,
that's
they
pretty
just like
cool.
reprinted that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know that version of Call of Cthulhu is on Tubi, believe it or not.
Yeah, and their version of Whisper in Darkness too.
Yeah, I just came across that just recently. I haven't had a chance to watch it yet, but I'm going to definitely watch that this season.
I've seen Call of Cthulhu, but I've not seen Whisper in Darkness because it was really hard to watch for a long time. So I'm planning on watching this Halloween season.
Yeah. Um, so we get deeper into the notes, and there's a discussion of this meeting that takes place in New Orleans with John Raymond LaGrasse, who they once again they find this statuette, like the small statue.
Except for this time, it's actually made out of like
It's like,
meteorite, like
yeah, it's
or
like a
yeah,
greenish black stone. It's not like a bas relief.
yeah, it's like an actual statue, and it's like heavier than it should be, and it's a grouping of linguists, essentially, and anthropologists is you know it's like this kind of meeting, and where Grass comes with them with the statue and a story about essentially uh how they encountered this Cthulhu cult in the swamp of New Orleans, which is really
Yeah,
cool.
Louisiana. Yeah, and they were there was it was basically it was an all male cult, but they were sacrificing women and children.
Yeah, and they're engaging in bestial orgies, and there's also in that section they mentioned that there's these like weird white things in the hidden in the woods. So there's other creatures that attend these sabbats or rituals to Cthulhu.
Yeah.
Which is
Um,
just kind of briefly mentioned. You're like, what?
yeah, they don't really elaborate on that too much, really.
I think some of them are night gaunts because they're described like night gaunts, you know.
Right.
But then there's these white like fleshy looking things. I'm wondering if they're Migo.
Maybe. Yeah,
Yeah,
Migo.
because you know,
Um,
in Whisper in Darkness, the Migo do rituals to Cthulhu as well. They do the whole ritual to Fatagan, Cthulhu Fatagan, and all that.
Cthulhu
You know.
Protagon, yeah.
Yeah.
So we also discover that they worship the great old ones. You know, that comes to the forefront. And they're waiting for the return of Cthulhu, you know, which at this point we don't really know a whole lot about what Cthulhu is at this point of the story.
Yeah, they find that out from uh this guy Castro, who's a mulatto, who's like the only person from the cult who's willing to talk to them about everything. And at the same time, one of the other guys at this meeting goes, "Well, I've heard of this before myself. Like, and there's this degenerate like Indian clan of Eskimo who the other Eskimos hate, who uh, worship, and they have the same stone statue there, and they're worshiping Cthulhu, you know, and he had actually been able to get a translation of from talking to the Eskimo of the actual what the ritual is saying, essentially.
Yeah, and this is where we once again we you know Lovecraft goes into his sort of disdain for these like inbred sort of degenerate groups of people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The yeah, I think what is he? Yeah, the text is given in his house, or no? So yeah, the Eskimo guy didn't know what was saying, but LaGrasse had find out from Castro that in his house at Rilla, dead Cthulhu waits dreaming. The Fanugui Miguinafa, whatever, Cthulhu Relay, Wagana Fatagan.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, it's kind of interesting how it's all kind of coming together where you're finding out about all these
Yeah.
disparate strands, you know, on
No,
the edges of society. Yeah.
I just want to take a little nod here that you know people oftentimes talk about how it would be difficult to make a movie out of like a Lovecraft story because nothing actually happens. And this is a story that really in the current like we're it's all just basically people talking and people reading other like articles about stuff. It's not like this action is actually happening. It's like all secondhand. Like the action is all secondhand that they learn about. And it's like a really interesting way of telling the story, I think.
Yeah, you're like at this point, like when you're reading, so you're reading there's a whole, you get the whole Gross story of their kind of raid up on this cult. And if you really think about it, you're layers in, like you're from the viewpoint of Thurston reading his Angle's notes and Angle relating the story uh
Yeah.
of Lagros, so you're like four layers into kind of like what, the narrative essentially at this point.
Yeah, it's like a pretty wild way to tell a story. It also reminds me a little bit of how when you read Dracula, it's all like these kind of articles and, secondhand information and things like that.
Well, it's also like Frankenstein, because if you think Frankenstein is Victor Frankenstein telling the story to the guy on the ship, right?
Right.
And at certain points, you have the part where the creature is telling Frankenstein his story of what happened, and then you get a whole nother story of the creature relating, Sophie and all of those people that he's like, kind of like sponging off of, you know what I mean? Like, and their whole story. So you're like, and then you have to remember that essentially the narrator is the guy on the ship who's writing this as a letter to his sister. It's kind of funny like how that. I think this is definitely slightly when people think that postmodern literature made up like came up with all these ideas, like they didn't really. This is kind of a what people call a postmodern take on story writing, but that's actually goes back to old Gothic literature.
Yeah. Yeah. So Thurston's getting deeper into all this research and he discovers this article from a newspaper in Australia where there's this guy, Gustav Johansson, who is like the sole survivor of this incident that happened with these ships. Like, so there's the Alert, and then there's the Emma, which is the ship that Johansson was actually on. And well, he was like captured by the guys on the Alert. Um, and so it's a little confusing about that sort of thing. Yeah, so yeah, the wait, hold on a second here. The crewmen, the people on the Emma killed the people that were aboard the Alert, that ship.
Yep.
And then in the
Yep.
battle they lost Emma. So Emma goes down the tubes and inhabit the Alert. That's what it is. Yeah.
And on the alert, they find one of those Cthulhu statues,
Another, yep,
and
here we
yeah,
go again with another
yeah,
little statue of a tentacled guy.
and they get the idea of the people on the alert were trying really hard that they didn't go forward in the direction they're going, so they're like, well, let's see what they didn't want us to see, essentially, which was their mistake. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
they kept going on the direction. One thing we did forget, just as a aside for a second, is that we forgot to mention that Thurston's uncle was died after being jostled by a nautical looking Negro.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. There we go. That's right. So yeah, the whole reason why Thurston's looking into this stuff is but we learned that there's also suspicion of like, there's like
Like,
some nefarious deeds at hand with that too.
yeah, some type of foul play. Yeah.
Foul play. Yeah.
Um, but people say, oh no, he just had a heart attack, but it seems like something happened. So, and that's important for as this story progresses.
Yeah.
And yeah, so the crew members of the Emma who are now on the alert, there's not too many of them left, but they take the ship into the direction that the people that attacked them. And I guess they were really horrified by the people on the alert. And later on, it's stated that the when later on when they ask him why did you kill viciously murder all those people, he goes, you don't want, he's like, if you saw what we saw, you would do the same, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Yeah.
so so who knows what was on the alert, and why they hated these people so much, but more of that degenerate shit.
So this is where we discover this island, and they give you the coordinates of this island, and uh, and everyone's killed on the island except for Johansson. He's like the sole survivor of this thing.
Yeah. And that's all we kind of find out at this point, right? So
Well, let me ask you, in Dagon, there's an island that sort of pops up out of the ocean, right?
yeah.
Is this the same island, do you think?
I don't know. I think it might be more closer to the island of like in relating to Shadow over Innsmouth, but I think it's just a similar idea. Isn't there another story where something similar happens as well?
Yeah, it's just maybe it's because I read these stories really close together recently, where I'm like, oh, this is where,
I
this
think
is the same island, you know?
I think the difference though is that the island in Call of Cthulhu, as we find out later, is like relay, so it's like this big like
Mm,
eldritch, non-Euclidean town, right?
right,
Like that they're walking through, and then they find this weird door that opens in a way where it's described as somebody falling into an angle at one point. Like one of the guys falls into the angle. Where the thing in Dagon is like the bottom of the ocean came up, and there's like a big like monolith that the he sees the deep one
right,
swimming around,
yeah.
right? So
But I am I like
could
having
be,
read these things in the same like basically reread these all last week basically. So I'm like, I wonder if this is Urlay, in Dagon,
yeah,
what I mean? But
or the outskirts of it or connected to
yeah,
it. Yeah.
some because it's I mean, I know that a lot of the pulp writers would knock out story after story after story, and even, and Lovecraft was very much part of that. He was writing to make a living, basically. So, like sometimes things like this, they would recycle, I guess, some of their ideas. But I feel like Lovecraft had more intention in some of his writing, especially since he was creating, this overarching world that spanned over all these different short stories.
Yeah. Well, and then the hieroglyphics on the monolith in Dagon do sound like very Cthulhu-esque. So
Yeah.
I always wonder, are the deep ones spawn like I don't think so. There's like the Cthulhu spawn where like the star spawn creatures, who I think are more like octopoid,
Hmm.
but I think the deep ones are like maybe like back in Eldritch time they worshipped they were like some type of like primordial race that came in contact with the star spawn because they're all underwater and they
Yeah.
worship Cthulhu and the star spawn. You know what I mean? That's kind of what I think.
Yeah. It's just interesting parallel between the two stories.
Yeah. And what's the other no, is it the temple? No, the temple's underwater. That's another deep one story, but it's like the guy in the submarine. Remember that
Oh
one?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I don't know I can't remember all the details just yet though on that.
That one is like this it's like a German submarine that takes a hit and sinks, and it's basically and they sink into this deep like chasm in the ocean, and the guy, uh basically starts like seeing like these deep one fish people, like, and he sees this like ancient temple in the depths of the ocean. So then
Right.
eventually he goes out and like uh with what little oxygen that's left, he like goes out in like one of those old like old timey depth suits, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, like it's
And
almost diving suits. Yeah.
yeah, and goes into the temple, and I forget what exactly happens, but he comes out, he writes this stuff down, and he's like, as I'm running out of oxygen, I'll release this, into the ocean. Hopefully my message will reach somebody that don't delve into the deeps of the ocean or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's another one of the deep one stories. I think all these deep stories are pretty deep one Cthulhu stories are pretty interesting though, and they're definitely very related to the story to Darkness Weaves that we're covering right now, the novel.
This is true. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's why it's kind of timely that we're doing this.
like the creatures and the aliens and alien like octopoid creatures in Darkness Weaves literally are like Cthulhu spawn. You know what I mean? It seems like to me. So,
Yeah, no, totally.
um,
All right. So where do we leave off here? Um,
so then yeah, all of that what's his name? The Thurston sees is this article and inspires, and part of what he sees in this article, the reason why catches his attention is there is a picture of one of those Cthulhu statues
Yeah.
related to this guy's experience. Like he came back with that, and so Thurston decides to travel to Sydney, Australia, to go see the statue for himself and try to see if he can track down the Norwegian sailor. I forget his name.
Johansson.
Johansson.
Yeah. But we learned that Johansson died suddenly.
Yeah, he went back to Oslo and died suddenly. That's what he
Yeah,
learns when he goes to Sydney.
after
Yeah.
running into two Lascar sailors. So it's very similar to the way Angle passed.
Yeah, I think they make it look like an accident with him where something falls from above and hits him in the head or something like that. Yeah.
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 So, it looks like there's definitely some, some skullduggery involved in this stuff here.
Yeah. And Thurston sees the statue for himself in Sydney. And I think this is when the reality of what's going on really starts sinking in for him, right? Where he's
Hmm.
like, okay, there's like before he's just reading, the stories and his all this stuff in his father and his uncle's, box. But now he's seeing like a unnatural statuette of the Cthulhu for himself. You know what I mean? And I think it's all starting to kind of come together, come to reality for him.
Yeah. And Thurston gets a hold of Johansson's writings from his widow.
Yeah, when he
Uh,
goes to Oslo.
yeah, and he wrote it, Johansson wrote it in English so that his wife wouldn't read it
Yeah.
and
I
keep it secret.
One thing we forgot to mention too is that uh the artist guy at the start went into like a fever for like a week period of time, and that's when the earthquake happened, and that corresponds exactly to the date when Johansson was on the ship. So,
Oh, okay. Yeah,
yeah.
that's important.
Yeah.
We just completely forgot to
Yeah.
mention
and
that.
and yeah, so now we read the actual description. Now we're yet again we're reading another layer where Thurston's relating
It's
Johansson's journal.
once again, man, it's wild. Like when you're reading this, you're just kind of like going along, and then when you discuss it right now, you realize all this is like layered through different, you know, captions of different descriptions and different, manuscripts and descriptions of other things, and it's just really interesting. So he describes like an uncharted island. Um, and he mentions it's a nightmare corpse city called Erle. And so that's, there we go.
Yeah. I like how it's called a Nightmare Corpse City.
I know it's great, right?
It seems like it's like made of some unearthly material, like maybe they came, who knows how they made it, but it almost seems like it was grown or something. And again, that seems reminds me of Darkness Weaves
Yeah,
with,
yeah.
you know,
What also comes to mind with these descriptions is like H.R. Geiger's interpretations of cities and whatnot too. You know what I mean? Like there's like the Necronomicon work that Geiger did,
yeah, the kind of
which
biomechanical stuff. Yeah.
yeah, and I've always thought because like the Geiger interpretation of structures would be pretty much what early looks like.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Like just with maybe more like weird angles or something, because it's kind of described as almost being like modern, like brutalist, modernist, like cubist type of. Yeah, I think that's even mentioned at one point in it, right? So it's like how like cubism like has all these weird angles that come together.
Yeah,
But then with like the texture of H.R. Geiger, that's definitely what I imagine
yeah,
when I
yeah,
think of it.
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's we're starting to get a really clear idea about what this is all about.
And I think so here's something I think particularly we covered Dreamer Witch House a long while back with like the angles and everything. Do you think that the reason why the city is made up of these non-Euclidean crazy angles is because the Cthulhu and his Starspawn are like only partly matter, so
Yeah,
they need these angles to manifest themselves into our
yeah.
reality? You think that's kind of what's going on?
throughout the course of my life, right? And when I was a young kid reading these stories, I had no idea what they were talking about. But then as I got into college and I started studying mathematics for my engineering degree, I started thinking about that more. And like I feel like the idea of imaginary numbers and stuff like that, like the square root of zero or whatever, or it's like there's a whole other non-Euclidean plane that is theoretical, and that's where the early partially exists in this like theoretical non-Euclidean world, and it could very well be that Lovecraft, tapped into that idea too, of imaginary numbers and like,
Well, I feel like you probably read books about those type of ideas,
yeah, like
in
those
the yeah,
concepts, you know what I
yeah.
mean? So that always I always thought about that as like these kind of like weird infinity like equations and stuff, and how that if you use those concepts to try to describe something material, it would have to exist in a different dimension than the dimension that we're in. So that was like, I would when I was learning all this stuff in college, I was thinking about Lovecraft and stuff too, and how these weird cities could possibly exist in like the Euclidean dimension and then in some other imaginary realm.
Yeah. And I'll also imagine it like angles that we wouldn't build with, right? Like
Yeah,
we build everything in kind of like it's there's a real like set way we build things, right?
yeah,
But there have been people who experimented like for example like in Cabinet Dr. Caligari, like they built like sets with weird angles that you wouldn't build like normal houses it with, right? And that's kind of how I kind of imagine not like to a certain extent non-Euclidean uh angles to look in a material way is like the type of feeling like if you walk into a room where things are just off, like have you ever been in like a weird old
yeah,
house where they've done like somebody's done something where just like in Dream's Witch House where there's like the weird like somebody at some point in time did like screwed up like gate like like angle in the ceiling or some shit,
yeah,
and
yeah,
it just
definitely.
it just feels weird, because
Yep.
it's like not like correct, spatially correct for us, so it makes you feel like kind of like uneasy or dizzy. I think there's been like architects who have like experimented with non-Euclidean architecture, and the result is usually people feel like a sense of dread when they walk into
Yeah,
that,
no, there's something to that for sure. Absolutely,
Yeah.
there is. Like even there's a lot of newer buildings in New York that have like architecture like that are like these. You look along the skyline and you see these older buildings with like everything's at a nice right angle and like rectangular buildings, and then you'll see some monstrosity that was like some abomination that some architect designed that's in this smooth, like it doesn't have any edges on it. It's like smooth and kind of
Yeah.
cants off to like one side.
Yeah.
I'll send you some photographs, man. It's just like these like newer buildings and they just look fucking disturbing to me.
Well, it's, it's the art museum, the Denver Art Museum. The original museum kind of looks like a weird like castle shape. It's um a like modernist castle, but then what they did, they wanted to build an extension, so they had like this architect build this building. You'd have to look at a picture of it, dude. Like if you look up Denver Art Museum, it literally looks like uh it looks like some type of non-Euclidean like it looks like a giant crystal grown out of the ground basically.
It's awesome,
And
man. It's
like
weird.
it's like got this weird like shape thing, and when you go up the stairs in it, the way that that's slanted on the inside, it makes you feel kind of like dizzy a little bit like as you're
Yeah.
going up the stairs because it feels like it's meant to, I think they meant the inside to feel like you're like walking up like a side of a mountain or something, but it just ends up feeling like you're like traversing like the side of like a giant crystal or something. And it's really like whenever I go there, I feel like kind of like unbalanced. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh yeah, totally, man. And it's funny, like a few years ago when I was looking at apartments in Jersey City, I looked at this place that there it was like an old building that had been like renovated and changed, and all the rooms have different shapes and everything now. And the way that it was constructed, some of the just the use of the space had like such a like an unsettling, disturbing feel to it.
Yeah.
And I was with the real estate person. I'm like, I gotta get out of here, man. This place is creeping me out. I don't like it here. So it's like, yeah, I don't want it. You know, and it was like,
Yeah.
and it's like, and it was, yeah, there's like something about like odd angles and like spaces and that stuff. That's real for definitely.
I think that's what Lovecraft was picking up on, right? Like,
Yeah.
and Dreams of Witch House in particular, but it goes all the way to Rilla. There's a reason why Rilla has this kind of these qualities to it because I think that Lovecraft was felt like there was something deeper to it in some way, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when these guys are trying to make sense of this place on the island, the Johansson and his crew there, they accidentally free Cthulhu.
Yeah, they like oh, they don't mean to, but they open like some giant door and it's described really fucking weird where it's described as like opening up and inwards or something. Like it's really weird. And the guy like one of the guys falls into the angle like and just disappears. Like, you know, like that's like something that's described as well.
Yeah.
It's like uh he describes the angle in particular. I can't remember what it says, but it's like this weird angle, and the guy falls into it. So imagine somebody falling into an angle, like whatever that looks like,
Yeah,
and
it's
and then Cthulhu emerges from. It's like they open the gates, to hell basically, and Cthulhu emerges, and they start running their asses off.
yeah, and Johansson's the only one to make it out alive.
Yeah, there's one other guy, but then he gets on the ship with them, but then that guy looks back at some point and loses his mind.
Yeah, it's like
And
he's driven
yeah,
insane by like this thing that's they've unleashed on the world. Um,
Yeah. And luckily they're on a steamship, so Johansson's trying to get up as they're trying to get away. Cthulhu greasily enters the sea. That's how it's
greasy,
described.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, greasily, yeah, that's a good word. Yeah, I love the
yeah,
way they describe that.
yeah. And Johansson gets the crazy idea that to build up enough steam, he's gonna have to go turn around and ram Cthulhu. That's what he does. He turns the ship around and tries to get up to full speed and literally runs right through Cthulhu, and it's described as Cthulhu like popping. That's how it's described. He pops and then he starts reforming behind him. And I think that's when the guy goes insane. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so yeah, whereabouts unknown. You know what I mean? Afterwards,
Yeah. And
yeah,
and I guess Rilla must have sunk after this again because later people go and there's nothing, they don't
they
see
can't
anything
find
from
it.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But here's my question is it also do you think Rilla exists like on some type of like fault line between two dimensions?
You know, I've thought about this, and I'm going to I'm going to answer this question. And what made me think this was year oh, back in the 90s, I was reading a comic book called Grimjack. Okay. And it all took place in a city called Cynosure, which exists in a different dimension. And sometimes it would align with different other dimensions. And in my mind, Erla is very much like Cynosure, where it's
Yeah.
like it exists in its own dimension somewhere. And then through whatever means, it aligns itself with the vibrations of different realms. And that's how it appears like this. I don't think it actually sinks and rises and falls. I think it syncs up with the vibration of this dimension, and then that's how it comes out. You know, comes to the surface as a result of that.
Right, yeah. And it happens to be in the middle of what is now the middle of the ocean, what maybe back at, what was the Lovecraft uses like this like ridiculous like term for like how old time, but basically it's like back in the, you know, dawn of the earth when the star spawn came it probably wasn't under maybe it wasn't under the ocean
Yeah,
or or it was
that
like an island or something back then.
well, that's yeah, that's what I mean. Like it's interesting because they cite a specific coordinate for the island in the story,
Yeah,
right? So as there's all the different concepts, the different ideas of like Pangea and like continental drift and all this stuff. So it's conceivable that aeons ago, when the continents were in different places, that was the location of Early A.
yeah,
And now, as the continents have drifted apart and it's now an ocean, when it syncs up, it comes back to that specific coordinate, but now it's in the middle of the ocean and it's now an island or, a sunken city or whatever you want to call it.
yeah. The only thing is that Cthulhu definitely seems to be a kind of play on a sea creature, but I don't think he's necessarily. It could have been an island back then or something. Here's another idea. Um, what if Rilla was banished by the elder things to a kind of a dimension outside of time, so that when it comes into art, it's like essentially manifesting. I'm trying to think how to explain. Like it got banished outside of time, so now it's like another time stream coming into our time stream with Cthulhu. But Cthulhu is just waiting for the stars to align when the alignment can occur where he can escape Rila as a prison, and can maraud the earth or whatever again. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, the idea of existing in a place that's outside of time is very intriguing because of like when you think about time dilation, like when like the theories that they have about interstellar travel and all that stuff, where like time goes at different rates when you're like in a different part of the universe, and all that stuff. It's like, so in
Yeah.
my mind, it's conceivable that there could be another timeline that's like, I mean, they're all completely different timelines once you leave the terrestrial boundaries.
Well, even in the terrestrial boundaries, you know that time goes by faster at different gravity. So time
Yeah,
goes by slow. I forget if I think time goes by faster the lower gravity it is or something, or slower. I forget which way it is, but yeah.
yeah, yeah, definitely. But I mean,
Yeah.
that's on Earth. But then if you think about when you're like going light years away,
You're outside of gravity
you're
entirely, so
you're outside
yeah.
of gravity entirely. And maybe there is a point in the universe where there's no time,
Yeah.
where you could infinitely exist in that area where there's no time.
Yeah. I mean, well they say that I, I think that there is some truth to that aging is slower in space or something like that. I forget. But it would be like that thing though, like if we traveled at the speed of light, like they show in movies, it would be like you would go to Mars and back, and you'd age like a handful of days, and people on Earth would age like 10 years or something, right?
Yeah, no, that's I don't know if I'm getting it right, but yeah, there's that's
It's
like
something like
time
that, right?
dilation.
Yeah.
Yeah, time dilation, and it doesn't have anything to do. I think it's like it's not even at the speed of light. It's like sub light speed that even if you just traveled for a certain period, it's different outside of Earth as it is over here. And it's
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Right. Like if somebody like even traveling to Mars and back would like for the person in space would be they would age less than the people on Earth or something like that. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
crazy shit, man.
Yeah. And I think about the idea of the timeless space or times outside or time streams. Like, um, I don't know. Like when you get into some like weird paranormal stuff, like I've heard stories of people who have these weird experiences where it's almost like they stepped into another time for even just a few minutes.
Yeah,
Like, or also, like, there's people who have these experiences where they're like, walking through a town, and then all of a sudden, like, for like a couple of minutes, everyone looks like they're like dressed like the 1940s or something. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I've heard
and
about
then
that.
stuff snaps back to reality. Like, who knows, like, what's possible in the world?
Yeah.
Particularly in certain places of power or certain, nexus points upon the earth.
So I think Lovecraft is playing around with all this stuff. You know what I mean? All these ideas when it comes to like the mythos here. You know?
Yeah. Well, he's definitely inspired by. Have you ever gotten in a Charles Fort, like Fortean stuff?
Very little, but yes, a little bit. Yeah.
I know for you can know for a fact that Lovecraft read Charles Fort because he mentions Charles Fort in some of the stories, you know.
Yeah.
I haven't read too much. I'd like to read more, but he basically just went around collecting like crazy stories and weird stuff and weird event, you know. It's
Yeah.
very with a kind of true skeptical mindset of like, you know, let's explore what reality is, you know. Like not you're not just like the problem with a lot of paranormal is that they just blindly accept stuff.
Because they want to
Right.
believe it. They're already like
Yeah.
they're biased towards believing it, you know?
And then on the other side, you have so-called skeptics who are biased towards not believing things.
Yeah, they close themselves off to some of these ideas.
A true skeptic is somebody who's open to the possibilities, but isn't going to be blindly naive, you know. Which, yeah, one thing that I can recommend to people is check out the Haunted Objects podcast with the Newkirks. I think I sent that to you, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's really
Yeah,
good. Yeah, I listen to that.
yeah. They get in all kinds of stuff like that in that podcast. They're definitely true skeptics where they're like, you know, they're into all this stuff, but they're not blindly accepting anything, you know. And I really like their podcasts. But I know some of their
Definitely.
episodes they get like the Mothman one, they get into a lot of that stuff, you know.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the Mothman stuff.
Dude,
Definitely.
last year I listened to the audiobook of the Mothman Prophecies. It was pretty awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
I have it, I own it, but I just was like, I'm in the mood for this. So I listened to the audiobook and I was like, I want to read some of his other shit. The what's his name? The author of Mothman Prophecies. He's written some other stuff about aliens and different things. John Keel.
John Keel. Yeah, I couldn't remember his name either.
It's cool.
Yeah.
Mothman is cool. I don't remember if this movie's any good. I haven't seen it since I was a kid. I
No,
like
the
it.
movie's fun, man. I
Yeah.
mean, it's not, it's like it's entertaining. I
Every,
think it's pretty good.
I loved it when I was a kid. That's what introduced me to the idea of Mothman, and I thought it was
Yeah.
yeah. I read that. So I somehow managed to read Mothman Prophecies when I was like a teenager, and got into all that stuff. And uh, it's cool how they filmed it in Ohio, but the place they filmed it looks exactly like Point Pleasant, West Virginia. Like almost it's crazy how much it looks like it.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
So after reading all this stuff with Johansson, Thurston, now he's suspecting that he's a target now because he's learned all this hidden knowledge about Cthulhu. So
Yeah. And he's
yeah,
got this
so
kind of paranoia because, you know, when he went to go visit Johansson, he thinks he was being watched and stuff. Yeah.
yeah. Um, so now the ending of this thing, he's hoping that no, all this stuff will be destroyed, after he dies, basically. And he's resigned himself to the fact that the worshipers are going to take him out, just same way as they did with Johansson and his great uncle.
Yeah. And this is the funny thing though, is that, you know, he's compiled all this stuff together. Uh he says that he wants them to be destroyed, but you know, if he wants that, he should have destroyed it
Just
himself. But
burned it up. Yeah.
I think that he can't really, because it's that kind of thing that people get, you know, you've gone too far, you've discovered too much, like you've kind of, I think you'd feel like uh there's probably a little bit of dual aspects where you know he thinks that this stuff should be destroyed, but he himself like can't bring himself to do it. You know what I mean?
And it kind of goes back to the beginning where they talk about how that idea of there's things that we shouldn't know about, and Cthulhu being one of them, back to like where, our narrow viewpoint is only limiting the true vastness of the cosmos and the things that lurk out there. And that's kind of like, everyone goes insane or gets killed or, only bad things happen to people who look beyond what we should be seeing.
Yeah. Unless like you're like the main protagonist of Shadow over Innsmouth, where he embraces it, you know.
Yeah, and then he's the
But
hero at the end. Yeah,
yeah,
Armitage.
or no, not no. I mean, in Dunwich, yeah, but I mean, in Shadow Innsmouth, the
Oh
main
yeah,
character of that,
Intimate. Yeah,
yeah, he embraces his lineage and goes off to become a deep one, right? So
right. Well, there you go. But like,
yeah,
that's what I mean. Like, he
yeah.
becomes just okay. I have all this like genealogy inside of me, and I'm destined to become one of these beings. So let me just follow.
Yeah, I think there's an element to it that yeah, Armitage is probably the only character, one of the few characters, along with the main character of Whisper in the Darkness, Wilmer Waymirth. Um, there's a couple. Lovecraft has a few of these guys because I actually the thing that people seem to not realize is I don't think Lovecraft was actually scared of these things. Like if you read the Dreams, Dream Quest of Unknown Kadath, like his kind of standing character is engaging with all these things like without any fear at all. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I actually think that Lovecraft wasn't really too afraid of the outer things, but he was more fascinated by them, and you kind of see that with some of his characters who are standing characters. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, this is true. Yeah.
But we don't really have that in this. And you got to think that he's trying to write a horror story. He's trying to make people scared. I think that
Yeah.
maybe some aspects of this scared him, but I think he's more fascinated. But I think there is the thing though that when you reach a certain level of insight, you can't help but be transformed, right? You can't unsee the things you've seen, or realize,
Yeah. I mean, that's all, that's prevalent through a lot of like even horror films that I like too. Like once you see something, like you can't unsee it and you're changed by that realization. Like what is that? The Ring movies are like that too, you know?
Yeah. A lot of them are like that. I just think that I think it's a very powerful idea because it's true. Like you know, uh, there is that question. Like so, like if science, and this is an aspect of science in particular. I think because science, for example, seeks to delve into things. And then next thing you know, you got atomic bomb. You think that Lovecraft died before the atomic bomb was invented or set off. Imagine what he would have thought if he had lived to see that.
Yeah.
That must have felt. I would imagine for him it would have felt like exciting on the scientific side of himself, but then also terrifying in the sense of like the things that he's been talking about in the stories coming true in some ways.
Well, free, it's interesting when like I feel like the specter of the Golden Bough is like over both of these stories that we've been, discussing. And like if you think about the Fraser's analysis of the transformation or the progress from you know, um, sort of pagan religions and magic into religion, into technology. And if you think about the nuclear bomb being like the ultimate manifestation of the apocalyptic forces that seem to be prevalent throughout religion and magic, you know?
Yeah, yeah, and that's why it's seen as such a important moment and a lot of things, even occult stuff. And I mean, think about again going back to Lynch, like Lynch putting that as like a centerpiece of Twin Peaks: To Return. The idea
Yeah,
that uh, when the nuclear bomb was first set off, it opened up a portal to Judy, to this like entity that feeds off of like people's fear and suffering and everything. Like that's a very Lovecraftian idea, right?
yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah. Man, that third season was so great, man. I loved it.
It's so deep. Like the more you watch it, the more things you see in it. Because I think it's one. I think it's probably in some ways the kind of Lynch's magnum opus in the sense that you get everything. It feels like he knew that it could be the final thing he ever made, so he put bits of everything that he wanted to do in that series. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, Brandon and I are doing that Black Lodge collaboration, and we got many, many episodes to do before we get to the third season, but I'm really looking forward to getting back into that, whenever we get to it.
Yeah, particularly after you watch the first couple of seasons again and you get to it, like and you got to watch Firewalk with me before you get into the return because it's very
Yeah,
important because
absolutely.
the return really draws a lot on Firewalk with me, like because that
Yeah.
yeah. But anyways, yeah, I mean, I just think that these ideas that like things breaking in from the outside due to like science delving too deep is definitely a very Lovecraftian idea.
Yep, absolutely. So
Yeah.
that's that's the Call of Cthulhu, which is like on my reading list this time of year. And any of you
So
guys out there who are on the Patreon, I'm putting up an episode of my Samhain Halloween reading list of short stories if you guys want to check them out. It's like a bunch of recommendations. Some of the stuff Carl and I have discussed on Darkness Weaves, um, not so much the Kane stories, but some of the stories that were in A Lonely Place. Some of those are classics for this time of year.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, call because Lovecraft is something I read a lot, and I also listen to the H.P. Lovecraft literary podcast. Their episodes. A lot of times I'll listen to episodes about the stuff multiple times
Yeah,
too. So
yeah,
like,
definitely. It's
yeah,
re-listenable, all their stuff.
yeah. The um yeah, I've actually been going back and start rereading some of the Kane short stories. I started since the book you gave me. I've started on Undertow again,
Yeah,
and it's really cool reading the stories a second time, and particularly that one because I didn't know what was going on the first time I read it, and now I know
yeah.
that what's going on. It's even more chilling as you read it.
I mean, I feel like all of Wagner's material is like you can just go back and reread it, and you get little different things out of it. Yeah, that's why he's one of my favorite authors for that reason.
Yeah, I just think the Kane stuff is just so special. I wish there was more fantasy like it, but I can't. It's hard to find anything that even comes close to how awesome it is for the dark fantasy genre. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely.
Particularly because it balances the sword and sorcery elements too.
Yeah, I mean, like a lot of the stories are straight up horror stories too, which is awesome.
Yeah. Well, and like Rogues in the House, they always talk about how sword and sorcery part of what they think it needs to have is horror elements.
Yeah,
And I think that's 100. I think that's one thing that sets sword and sorcery apart. Even when you read Conan or any good sword and sorcery, there's going to be some kind of horrific or even cosmic horror elements. And I think that
yeah, and that sets it aside from like epic fantasy, which doesn't necessarily have like horror elements in it.
no, I mean there's definitely horrific moments even in like Lord of the Rings, but
Yeah,
it's not really there's horror. There's certain set pieces and like Silmarillion and stuff that sound like horror, like where you're going through like the vampire woods haunted by vampires and shit. But it's not it's not the main effect. Where sword and sorcery, I think you need to have that kind of uncanny, weird fiction element in it. You know what I mean?
no, definitely, definitely.
But and that's why I like to read those type of stories too around this time of year because it's like particularly Wagner, anything Wagner really you can read, be it Kane,
Yeah.
other stories, doesn't matter because it's gonna be awesome and same with Lovecraft.
There's
Um,
um there's an author I recently discovered called Daryl Schweitzer
yeah, you told me about
who
that. Yeah,
yeah, and the cool thing about his writing, like I was just on a plane, like when I was out in Colorado, when we hung out, and I have a collection, a mega pack. It's called the Cthulhu Mythos Mega Pack, which is on Kindle, and it's I just out of the blue, I just randomly decided to read the Daryl Schweitzer story, and it's like really blew me away, man. It's some of it is has like it's weird fiction, but then there's a couple that he has that are sword and sorcery tales. And
yeah.
the sword and sorcery style is most like closer to like Between Two Rivers, like that style took place in actual history.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. I'm
The
trying to think of trying to find the name of the title of the story that I read escapes me right now.
yeah, I bought that Cthulhu Mega Packs. I need to read that because it's a buck on fucking Kindle.
Dude,
You can't
you
beat
can't
that.
go wrong with that, man. That's like it's so sick. It's like there's so many great stories in there, and it's like, you can't really go wrong.
Yeah,
Even if you only like half of them, you're still ahead for a dollar.
Daryl Schweitzer's been writing since the '60s.
Yeah.
Like it says '68, so when he was like 16 years old, he started writing. That's crazy.
But yeah, if any of this stuff interests you, definitely go and find they're like I said, you just can't go wrong. They'll have stuff you probably read already. Like there's a bunch of Robert E. Howard. There's like, some Lovecraft in there. There's like Clark Ashton Smith. But then there's like random people in there. Like, I mean, I know Daryl Schweitzer's been around since the 60s, but I've never read him until now. So
No, never even heard of him. and he's got quite a bit of stuff like a book novel called The Mask of the Sorcerer. He's got a bunch of there's a collection called Sekenre Book of the Sorcerer. So I guess he's got these like settings. So he's got like the Great River, which is all this sorcerer stuff, and he's got one called the Goddess series.
Oh, cool.
Um, yeah, if you go on Wikipedia, you see there's a character called Sir Julian. And they get okay, this is Sword and Sorcery hero, Sir Julian. There's a collection called We Are All Legends, collection of fantasy short stories by American writer Darrell Schweitzer, featuring his sword and sorcery hero Sir Julian.
Yeah, you see, I'm gonna probably get into that stuff.
Came
Definitely.
out in 1981.
Yeah.
I need to track this down.
Yeah. And he's a good
Yeah.
writer. Like his writing is really good and it's interesting and the stories move and I don't know, I was pleasantly surprised because in that same flight I read some Poppy Z. Bright, which I wasn't really into.
Yeah, Poppy Z. Bright is one of those writers that I always feel like I should like,
Yeah.
but I don't. I've never like even because you're like you read about her you know in conjunction with like Clive Barker and a lot of those kind of people, and anytime I read her stuff I just don't. It's like I like the idea of what she's doing, but I don't like reading her stuff. It's too like it's almost too gross. It's
Yeah,
too
yeah. I'm not into extreme horror. I just made that realization several years ago. I was like, you know what, man, this is not for me, this stuff.
uh let's see. And it looks like oh dude, it's been reprinted. $15 on Amazon. We Are
Which
All
one?
Legends.
Oh, hell yeah.
His book of We Are Legends follows the journey of the immortal and cursed wanderer Julian. Traveling through a dark, magical world, Julian faces demons, gods, and his own past, seeking redemption but often finding tragedy. Schweitzer blends sword and sorcery with eerie, atmospheric horror as Julian's quest unfolds in a series of interconnected stories. Dude, I'm gonna send this to you.
That sounds like a winner to me.
I, $15, dude.
Can't beat it.
I'm gonna order it. I'm just gonna order it now. Fuck it.
Yeah.
Like this sounds so good. It sounds
Yeah.
exactly like what I was just saying I wanted to find more
Dude, there you
of.
go, man. And like I said, definitely check out the stuff that's in that Mythos 40 pack or whatever mega pack.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna read that. Here, I'm gonna email it to you.
Cool.
Uh the like sounds sick as fuck. I guess it was out of print for a long time.
Yeah, yeah. Like I'm learning about him just now. I mean, just in the last couple of weeks, really.
I wonder yeah, I don't know if there's one The Last Heretic, the best short fiction of Darrell Schweitzer. There's another story one called The Mysteries of the Faceless King. Mask of the Sorcerer, that's the one I mentioned earlier. Huh. There's a collection called Profane Altars, Weird Sword and Sorcery.
Huh. Okay.
It just popped up. It's not Gerald Schweitzer, but it's like a
Yeah. Sounds good.
collection of writers of modern.
Yeah.
Yeah. Huh.
Well, this was fun, man.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
been good, and of course, people also hear probably before this. We have to do Darkness Weaves for this month too
Yep.
for
We
everyone
got
back.
this
So
month's Darkness Weaves. We got this. Yeah, there's a bunch of content we got coming out. The two of us working together on.
yeah, and we'll be finishing off Darkness Weaves. I think that might. I don't know when you're putting it out, so it might be out actually before this. So
I'm trying to look in the calendar and figure this out, like when we're going to do it, like when this is going to post actually. I might do this like the week of Halloween or something like that. I don't know, I got to figure it out.
yeah, let me know because I think we talked about a week of Halloween because I wanted to post mine on the Sunday before this one comes out. So
Okay, yeah. So let's figure the week of Halloween.
a
We'll
week of
put
Halloween.
this one out. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So and yeah, we have. I looked in our collection, Kane collection. There's four more Kane stories. There's the Gothic Touch with Elric, and then three modern day Kane stories. So one of which is a novella that will probably be two parts. So,
Okay.
but
Oh,
we still got quite a bit of Kane left, actually.
oh
Well,
yeah.
sort of,
Yeah.
And then we'll do Road to Kings and cross our way. we could either do Road to Kings or the Bran McMorn novel. Hey, maybe we could do yeah, because they're both the Howard ones, you know.
Yeah, I
Uh,
could see doing that. Yeah.
we'll figure it out, but
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
we're gonna we still got some time. I guess we probably won't cross over into Howard until about halfway through next year or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Something like that.
But hell yeah. But yeah, I hope everybody has a good Halloween. And it's been fun. It's been fun talking Lovecraft for a while.
Thanks for listening, everyone. Take care.